For centuries, whispers of a treasure beyond imagining have haunted the shadows of history, gold, sacred relics, and secrets so powerful they could shake empires. This isn't just any lost fortune, it's the legendary wealth of the Knights Templar, the warrior monks who rose from humble beginnings to become the most feared and revered order of the medieval world. Their story is one of faith, power, and a sudden, brutal fall, a disappearance so complete that it left behind only riddles. Where did their unimaginable riches go? Were they hidden in some forgotten crypt, smuggled across continents, or lost to time forever? The mystery has fueled treasure hunters, conspiracy theorists, and historians alike, each searching for clues in crumbling manuscripts, cryptic symbols, and the silent stones of ancient ruins. Picture this: a moonlit night in the year 1307. The Templars, once untouchable under the protection of popes and kings, are arrested in a single, shocking sweep. Their Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, is burned at the stake, but with his dying breath he vows vengeance, and legend says he also whispered the location of their treasure. From that moment, the trail goes cold. Some say the gold was spirited away to Scotland, hidden beneath Rosslyn Chapel. Others claim it lies buried on a remote island in Nova Scotia or deep within the labyrinthine tunnels beneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. The truth no one knows, but the allure of this puzzle is irresistible. It's not just about gold, it's about unraveling a tapestry of clues left behind by men who knew their time was running out. This is a story of devotion and betrayal, of codes carved into stone and maps drawn in invisible ink. It's about the lengths people will go to protect a secret and the obsession that drives others to uncover it. And today, we're diving headfirst into the enigma. We'll follow the trails that lead from the dusty archives of Europe to the windswept coasts of the New World, piecing together the fragments of a puzzle that has defied solution for 700 years. Whether you're a history buff, a treasure hunter at heart, or just love a good mystery, this journey is for you. Because the Knights Templar didn't just leave behind gold, they left behind a legend. And legends, they're meant to be chased. The story begins in the dusty streets of Jerusalem, just 2 decades after Christian armies captured the Holy City during the First Crusade. In the year 1119, a French knight named Hugues de Payens and 8 companions took an oath that would change history. They pledged themselves to God in a way no warriors had before, vowing not just to fight but to protect. Their mission: to guard the flood of pilgrims making the dangerous journey to sacred sites, travelers who were being slaughtered by bandits and rival factions along the roads. The King of Jerusalem gave them quarters on the Temple Mount, the legendary site of Solomon's Temple, and from this sacred ground they took their name, the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. But these poor soldiers would soon become anything but. What started as a small band of pious knights rapidly transformed into one of the most sophisticated organizations of the medieval world. The Church granted them extraordinary privileges. They answered directly to the Pope, bypassing local rulers. They were exempt from taxes, could cross any border freely, and developed an early banking system where pilgrims could deposit wealth in Europe and withdraw it in the Holy Land using coded letters. Their network of fortresses stretched from Jerusalem to Paris, and their influence grew so vast that kings borrowed money from them. How did this happen so quickly? The Templars weren't just warriors, they were innovators. They created the first true multinational corporation with estates, ships, and even their own navy. Their battle tactics were revolutionary, their discipline legendary. While other knights fought for personal glory, the Templars moved as one, sworn to absolute obedience. And when they weren't on the battlefield, they were master builders. Their rounded churches, modeled after the Dome of the Rock, still dot the European landscape today. Yet with power came whispers. Their secrecy sparked rumors. Some claimed they guarded more than just pilgrims, that beneath the Temple Mount they discovered ancient secrets or sacred relics like the Ark of the Covenant. Whether true or not, one thing was certain: by the 13th century, the Templars weren't just protectors of the faith. They were a force unto themselves, answerable to no one but God. And that would prove to be their downfall. The wealth of the Knights Templar wasn't just accumulated, it was engineered. While other medieval orders relied on piety alone, the Templars built an empire. Their riches came from three converging streams: the devotion of Europe's faithful, the spoils of war, and a financial system so advanced it would shape the modern world. Pilgrims and nobles alike donated land, gold, and even entire villages to support their holy mission. These weren't small gifts. Kings gifted them estates, and noble families willed fortunes to the order, believing their contributions would secure divine favor. But the Templars didn't just hoard this wealth, they made it work. Their real genius lay in recognizing that pilgrims traveling to Jerusalem faced a deadly dilemma. Carrying coins across bandit-infested roads was suicide, yet they needed funds to survive the journey. The solution: a revolutionary network of Templar banks. A pilgrim could deposit money at a Templar commandery in London or Paris and receive a coded letter of credit, essentially a medieval traveler's check. Present that letter at any Templar outpost along the route, and the equivalent sum would be handed over, minus a small fee for the order. This system wasn't just convenient, it was transformative. The Templars became the trusted middlemen of Christendom, handling everything from royal dowries to papal taxes. Kings borrowed heavily from them, including England's Henry II, who used Templar funds to suppress rebellions in Ireland. Even the Crown of France relied on their vaults. Paris's Temple fortress became the de facto treasury of Europe. Their financial reach extended beyond loans. The Templars pioneered early forms of investment, managing estates so efficiently that barren lands under their care flourished into profitable farms. They owned vineyards, mills, and fleets of ships, trading wool from England, wine from France, and spices from the East. At their peak, they weren't just warriors or bankers. They were landlords, merchants, and naval power brokers rolled into one. Yet their prosperity bred resentment. While the order grew richer, rival nobles drowned in debt to them. The King of France, Philip IV, owed them so much that repaying the loans would have bankrupted his kingdom. And when you owe someone everything, sometimes the easiest solution is to erase the debt permanently. The Templars' financial empire made them indispensable, but it also painted a target on their backs. In the end, their money wouldn't save them, it would doom them. The hammer fell on Friday the 13th, 1307, a date so infamous it still echoes through history as a symbol of bad luck. Before dawn broke across France, royal agents moved in perfect sync, seizing every Templar they could find. Grand Master Jacques de Molay, the order's leader, was dragged from his bed in Paris. Thousands of brothers were arrested within hours, accused of heresy, blasphemy, and unspeakable rituals. The charges were shocking: spitting on the cross, denying Christ, even worshipping a mysterious idol known as Baphomet. But behind these accusations lay a far simpler truth: greed. King Philip IV of France, nicknamed the Fair for his looks but not his morals, had spent years drowning in debt to the Templars. His wars, his lavish court, even the very crown on his head were financed by their loans, and with no way to repay them, he saw only one solution: destroy the bankers. For months, Philip's advisors secretly built a case, twisting rumors into confessions through torture. The Templars' own secrecy worked against them. Their private initiation rites, meant to test loyalty, were painted as proof of devil worship. The trials that followed were a farce. Under brutal interrogation, even the proudest knights broke. Some confessed to absurd crimes just to end the pain. Others, like the aging Jacques de Molay, later retracted their statements, but it didn't matter. The king had already pressured Pope Clement V, a weak pontiff installed with Philip's influence, to disband the order entirely. Across Europe, Templar lands were seized, their treasures vanished into royal coffers, and their legacy was smeared as heresy. Yet the strangest twist came at the end. As flames consumed him in 1314, Jacques de Molay allegedly cursed both Philip and Clement, vowing they'd meet him before God within a year. Whether by fate or coincidence, both men were dead within months, a chilling footnote that only deepened the Templars' myth. Their order was crushed, their wealth scattered, but their secrets, those, it seems, they took to the grave. The accusations against the Knights Templar read like something torn from the pages of a medieval horror story. Under the cold gaze of King Philip IV's inquisitors, the order stood accused of grotesque acts, spitting on the cross, denying Christ during secret initiation rites, even worshipping a demonic figure called Baphomet. These weren't just charges of misconduct. They were carefully crafted to paint the Templars as heretics of the worst kind, enemies of God himself. But how much of this was true? And how much was pure political theater? Take the so-called idol of Baphomet. In some confessions extracted under torture, Templars described it as a severed head, a gilded statue, or even a cat. No physical evidence of such an object was ever found, and descriptions varied wildly, often matching whatever imagery the interrogators suggested. Modern historians widely believe Baphomet was a fabrication, a boogeyman invented to shock the medieval public into supporting the Templars' destruction. The name itself might have been a twisted version of Muhammad, linking the Knights to Europe's greatest religious enemy at the time, a smear tactic straight out of the Middle Ages propaganda playbook. Then there were the charges of blasphemy. New recruits, it was said, were forced to renounce Christ and spit on the cross as part of their initiation. Yet here's the catch: these rituals, if they happened at all, may have been deliberately misinterpreted. Some scholars argue the Templars were engaging in a form of psychological conditioning, simulating betrayal to test a recruit's loyalty under extreme pressure, a practice not unlike modern military training. But in the hands of the king's prosecutors, these tests became proof of satanic allegiance. The timing of the accusations couldn't be ignored either. Philip IV didn't just wake up one day concerned about the Templars' souls. His treasury was empty, his loans to the order staggering. Eliminating his creditors under the guise of piety was a brutal but effective financial strategy. Even Pope Clement V, initially skeptical of the charges, eventually bowed to Philip's pressure after the king threatened to withdraw France's support of the papacy. The entire trial was less about heresy and more about cold, hard cash wrapped in the veneer of divine justice, yet the most damning evidence against the accusations. The Templars' own actions. For nearly 2 centuries, they'd been the Church's most devoted warriors, willing to die for their faith in the Holy Land. Would men who spent lifetimes defending Christianity suddenly gather in secret to mock it? The inconsistency speaks volumes. In the end, the Templars' real crime wasn't heresy. It was being too powerful, too wealthy, and too independent for a king who saw them as nothing more than a debt to be erased. The night before the Templars' arrest, something extraordinary happened. Their treasure vanished. Not just gold and silver, but chests of sacred relics, ancient manuscripts, and the order's most closely guarded secrets. Despite King Philip's meticulous planning, when his men stormed the Paris temple, the vaults were nearly empty. Coins littered the floor as if abandoned in haste, but the real fortune was gone. This wasn't an oversight, it was a well-executed escape. The Templars had spies in royal courts, and whispers suggest they'd known about the raid for days, even weeks. So where did it all go? One persistent trail leads to Scotland. In the chaotic years after the Purge, dozens of Templar ships slipped away from French ports under cover of darkness. Some reportedly reached the remote Orkney Islands, where the order had deep ties to Norse clans. Others may have sailed straight to the rugged coast of Rosslyn, where the Sinclair family, longtime Templar allies, welcomed them. Rosslyn Chapel, built decades later, is a labyrinth of Templar symbolism, from carvings of maize, a plant unknown in Europe at the time, to pillars resembling those in Jerusalem's temple. Beneath its floors, explorers have found hidden chambers, though none yet reveal gold, only more questions. Then there's Portugal, where King Rennes openly defied the Pope's order to disband the Templars. Instead, he simply renamed them the Order of Christ, letting them operate in plain sight. Their headquarters at Toma Castle became a vault for Templar knowledge, and their ships, adorned with the signature Red Cross, later carried explorers like Vasco da Gama to uncharted lands. Some believe the treasure wasn't hidden at all. It was reinvested into Portugal's age of discoveries, funding maps and navigational tools that changed the world. But the wildest theories point across the Atlantic. Centuries before Columbus, the Templars allegedly reached Nova Scotia, where the Oak Island money pit, a booby-trapped shaft that has swallowed fortunes and lives, hints at their engineering prowess. Others claim relics surfaced in colonial Massachusetts, hidden in plain sight within stone towers and odd carvings. Whether any of this is true hardly matters. The legend has taken on a life of its own. Because the greatest trick the Templars ever pulled wasn't hiding their treasure. It was making the world believe it's still out there, waiting to be found. In the heart of London, where modern skyscrapers loom over ancient streets, one building holds secrets that might rewrite the Templar treasure mystery: the Temple Church. Built in the 12th century as the English headquarters of the Knights Templar, this circular chapel isn't just a relic of the past, it's a living puzzle. Walk inside and you're stepping onto a floor of worn medieval stone, surrounded by effigies of armored knights frozen in time. But look closer. Beneath those stones, legends whisper of tunnels snaking toward the River Thames, passageways used not just for prayer, but for moving something far more precious. The Templars didn't choose this spot by accident. Nestled between the legal districts of Inner and Middle Temple, the church sat at the crossroads of power and finance, much like the order itself. Beneath its deceptively simple layout lies a network of crypts and cellars, some still unexplored. During renovations in the 1950s, workers uncovered hidden alcoves sealed for centuries. They found nothing inside, but that absence speaks volumes. Why build such elaborate hiding places if not to conceal something, even temporarily? Then there's the symbolism. The church's round design mirrors Jerusalem's Church of the Holy Sepulchre, a deliberate echo of the Templars' holy mission, but the carvings tell a darker story. Among the saints and angels, odd faces peer from the stone, some grotesque, others eerily serene. One recurring motif is the Green Man, a pagan symbol of rebirth, oddly juxtaposed with Christian iconography. Was this a coded message, a hint that the Templars guarded knowledge older than the church itself? The most tantalizing clue lies in the church's connection to the Templars' financial empire. Records show that in the days before the mass arrests, a flurry of activity occurred here. Ships docked along the Thames under cover of fog, and witnesses reported seeing heavily guarded carts moving toward the church at night. By the time King Philip's agents reached London, the trail had gone cold. Some believe the treasure never left, that it still rests in a chamber beneath the church, concealed behind centuries of renovations and legal red tape. Others argue the church was merely a waypoint, a temporary stop before the hoard was smuggled north to Scotland or across the sea. One thing is certain: the Temple Church isn't just a monument. It's a silent witness to history's greatest vanishing act, and until someone deciphers its stones or unseals its hidden passages, the truth remains buried, perhaps right beneath the feet of London's bustling lawyers and tourists. Rennes Chateau seems plucked straight from a mystery novel, a tiny French village perched on a rugged hillside, its narrow streets whispering of buried secrets. In the late 19th century, a penniless priest named Bérenger Saunière arrived here, assigned to a crumbling church with a leaky roof and a congregation barely scraping by. Yet within years, Saunière was spending fortunes restoring the church with bizarre, unexplained symbols, building lavish gardens and hosting extravagant parties for Parisian elites. Where did the money come from? The answer might tie directly to the Knights Templar. Theories swirl around Saunière's sudden wealth. Some claim he discovered hidden parchments in a hollow pillar beneath the church altar, documents so explosive they forced the Vatican to pay him for silence. Others insist he stumbled upon Templar gold buried centuries earlier when fleeing persecution. The priest left behind tantalizing clues, a twisted Latin inscription above the church door reading, "This place is terrible," a statue of a demon guarding the holy water font, and a cryptic altar carved with scenes of Mary Magdalene, a figure some believe the Templars secretly venerated. But the loudest whispers involve a bloodline. Hidden in Saunière's papers were encrypted messages pointing to the Merovingian dynasty, France's ancient royal family. Some researchers argue the Templars weren't just guarding treasure, they were protecting a lineage, perhaps even descendants of Christ and Mary Magdalene. It's a theory popularized by books like The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail, suggesting the Grail wasn't a cup, but a sacred bloodline hidden by the Templars and later by secret societies. The truth, Saunière took his secrets to the grave. On his deathbed, he reportedly begged for last rites from a priest who never arrived, or perhaps was silenced. His housekeeper burned stacks of his papers, leaving only fragments. Today, Rennes le Chateau attracts treasure hunters and conspiracy theorists alike, all drawn by the same question. Did Saunière uncover the Templars' final secret, or was it all an elaborate hoax? The village's mystique endures because the answer, like the treasure itself, remains just out of reach. Rosslyn Chapel stands like a frozen symphony in stone, its every surface alive with carvings that defy easy explanation. Nestled in the misty hills just south of Edinburgh, this 15th-century masterpiece has long been called the Templars' last sanctuary, and for good reason. The moment you step inside, the air hums with secrets. Vines of stone twist up pillars, blooming into flowers unknown to medieval Europe. Knights carved in relief grasp swords alongside depictions of maize, a plant that wouldn't reach these shores for another 50 years. How some say the chapel's builders, the Sinclair family, descendants of Norman knights with deep Templar ties, knew more about the world than history books admit. The connection to the Templars isn't just speculative. When Philip IV's purge began, fleeing knights allegedly found refuge under the Sinclairs' protection. Family records speak of foreign masons arriving suddenly, their ships laden with crates. These artisans supposedly worked only at night, constructing Rosslyn's infamous underground vault chambers still sealed today. Even the chapel's layout fuels the mystery. Its design mirrors the Temple of Herod in Jerusalem, down to the precise dimensions of the Holy of Holies. Was this an architectural tribute or a blueprint for hiding something sacred? Then there's the apprentice pillar. Legend claims the master mason left to consult designs abroad, only to return and find his apprentice had finished the pillar alone. A flawless spiral of stone so beautiful the master flew into a jealous rage and killed him on the spot. But look closer. The pillar's base is ringed with 8 dragons, a motif found in Norse and Templar symbolism alike. Its trunk spirals counterclockwise, echoing the alleged path of the Grail's descent during the Last Supper. Coincidence or a clue left in plain sight? The Grail theory takes darker turns in the chapel's crypt. Infrared scans reveal hollow spaces behind its walls, yet no one's been permitted to excavate. Some researchers point to a specific carving, a wounded knight with a chalice, his face eerily similar to Templar Grand Master Jacques de Molay. Nearby, a ceiling panel depicts the 5-pointed Star of Bethlehem, a design also found in Templar churches across Portugal. Could these be markers guiding the initiated to a hidden trove? Perhaps the most compelling evidence lies not in the chapel, but in the land itself. Just 3 miles from Rosslyn lies the ruins of Ballintroduch, the Templars' Scottish headquarters. Beneath its crumbling walls, ground-penetrating radar has detected a vast tunnel system, one that, according to local law, connects directly to the chapel. In 1982, a hiker stumbled upon a sealed stone chamber in the nearby Pentland Hills. Inside were rusted Templar swords and a chest of rotted wood. Before authorities arrived, both the artifacts and the hiker vanished. Rosslyn's enigma endures because it refuses to fit neatly into history. It's a place where architecture whispers of lost knowledge, where even the stone seems to breathe with hidden purpose. Whether it guards gold, relics, or simply the weight of 7 centuries of speculation, one thing is certain: the chapel's true secret isn't just what might be buried there. It's why someone went to such lengths to make sure we'd never stop looking. Off the fog-draped coast of Nova Scotia lies a place where legend and earth collide: Oak Island, home to the most infamous treasure pit in history. Since the late 1700s, explorers have risked fortunes and lives chasing whispers of Templar gold buried deep beneath its soil. The story begins with 3 boys stumbling upon a peculiar circular depression in 1795, its edges lined with flagstones worn smooth by time. Digging down, they hit wooden platforms every 10 feet, layers of logs, coconut fiber, and charcoal, materials alien to the Canadian wilderness. By 90 feet, they struck something even stranger: a flat stone inscribed with cryptic symbols, later translated to read, 40 feet below, 2 million pounds lie buried. Then disaster. Saltwater flooded the shaft as if the very island were defending its secret. This wasn't just a hole in the ground, it was an engineered labyrinth. Modern excavations revealed a network of flood tunnels, some stretching to the shoreline, designed to drown anyone who dug too deep. Divers later found a hand-forged scissors lift and wooden cribbing identical to structures used in medieval mines. Even more baffling, fragments of parchment, bits of gold chain, and a wrought iron hinge predating European colonization. How did these artifacts get there? One theory points to the Templars. In the chaos after their arrest, surviving knights may have sailed west, using Norse maps passed down through generations. Oak Island's Mahone Bay, with its labyrinth of coves, would have been the perfect hideaway, remote yet defensible. The island's geology adds fuel to the fire. Its bedrock contains traces of gold not native to the region, hinting at imported treasure. Then there's the Nolan's Cross, a series of massive boulders arranged in a perfect Templar-style cross, visible only from above. At its center, a stone slab carved with a medieval mason's mark, the same symbol found in Rosslyn Chapel. Skeptics argue the pit is a natural sinkhole, its traps merely collapsed seawater channels. But that doesn't explain the artifacts, nor the 17th century Spanish coin found wedged in a drill core. Perhaps the most chilling clue surfaced in 1971, when a camera lowered into a side shaft captured a murky image, what appeared to be a skeletal hand floating beside a chest. The footage vanished soon after, but the legend grew. Today, high-tech scans confirm hollow chambers beneath the island, some large enough to hold a ship's cargo. Yet every attempt to reach them triggers the same eerie pattern: floods, cave-ins, equipment failures. It's as if Oak Island itself resists discovery. Whether the treasure is Templar gold, pirate loot, or something else entirely, one thing's certain: whoever built this vault didn't want it found, and 7 centuries later their defenses still hold. The Knights Templar didn't just bury their treasure, they etched its location into stone. Hidden in plain sight, their symbols weave a cryptic language across Europe's cathedrals, castles, and countryside. Take the double-headed eagle, a motif carved into Templar strongholds from Portugal to Poland. At first glance, it's just heraldry, but this bird has 2 faces for a reason. One head looks east toward Jerusalem, the other gazes west to lands unknown. Some scholars believe it's a directional marker, hinting at a path split between 2 continents. Others argue it represents the Templars' dual mission, protecting the Holy Land while safeguarding a secret even greater than gold. Then there's the Maltese cross. It's 8 points sharper than a sword's edge. More than a badge of honor, this design functioned as a geometric cipher. When superimposed on maps of medieval Europe, its arms align with key Templar sites: Toma in Portugal, Chartres in France, and Acre in the Levant. But the most intriguing intersection falls on a nondescript field in the French countryside, where ground scans have revealed man-made chambers beneath the soil. Could this be a coordinate disguised as devotion? The real genius lies in how these symbols interact. In Rosslyn Chapel, a double-headed eagle stares directly at a pillar etched with the Maltese cross, and between them, a line of carved stars leads to a hidden alcove. When researchers measured the angle, it matched the sunrise on the summer solstice over Oak Island. Coincidence, maybe, but Templar architects weren't known for accidents. Their maps were just as cunning. The Vinland map, once dismissed as a forgery, shows North America centuries before Columbus, with a curious annotation, "By the Knights of the Temple." Then there's the enigmatic Zeno map, which depicts Greenland with startling accuracy and marks a site called Estatilant with a tiny red cross. Modern expeditions there uncovered Norse and Templar artifacts mingled in the same stratum, suggesting the order not only knew of the New World but established outposts there. Yet the most tantalizing clues lie in their graffiti. Beneath Dom prison in France, where Templars were held before execution, walls bear scratched symbols: a square and compass, a chalice, and strange constellations. When plotted, these stars match no known sky unless you account for precession, the slow wobble of Earth's axis. Correct for 700 years of drift, and the pattern aligns perfectly with the night sky over Rennes le Chateau in 1307, the year the treasure vanished. This wasn't just code, it was a failsafe. The Templars knew their enemies could break a man but not a system, so they scattered their secrets across architecture, astronomy, and art, ensuring only those who truly understood their mission could piece it together. The symbols endure, silent and patient, waiting for someone to read them right. And that's the ultimate irony. The treasure might not be hidden in the ground, but in the very language they left behind. The Holy Grail isn't just a cup, it's the ultimate treasure hunt, a symbol so powerful that kings and scholars have bled for it, and the Knights Templar. They stand at the center of its most tantalizing legend. Some say they didn't just seek the Grail, they found it, hiding it away with the rest of their hoard. But was it a physical object or something far more dangerous? The stories begin in the ruins of Solomon's Temple, where the Templars allegedly excavated not just gold, but relics that could rewrite scripture itself. Take the Grail's most famous version, the Chalice of the Last Supper, said to have caught Christ's blood at the crucifixion. Medieval romances like Parzival describe Templar-like knights guarding it in a hidden castle, accessible only to the purest of heart. But here's where history twists into myth. The Templars' own trial records contain eerie parallels. Accused of worshipping a head with miraculous powers, some scholars think this Baphomet was a coded reference to the Grail, a vessel of divine knowledge, not just a golden cup. Then there's the Ark of the Covenant, the Bible's ultimate lost relic. Hebrew texts describe it as a gold-clad chest capable of leveling mountains, last seen in Jerusalem, precisely where the Templars dug for 9 years. Could they have unearthed it? In Ethiopia, the Orthodox Church claims the Ark rests safely in Axum, yet Templar carvings in Chartres Cathedral depict it being carried onto a ship, hinting at a very different fate. Even the design of their round churches, like London's Temple Church, mirrors descriptions of the Ark's resting place in Solomon's Temple. Coincidence or a clue? But the wildest theory, the Grail wasn't an object at all. Troubadour poetry and Gnostic texts suggest it was a bloodline, the descendants of Christ and Mary Magdalene, protected by the Templars as living relics. This idea fuels Rennes le Chateau's mystique, where priest Saunier's bizarre carvings of Magdalene hint at a secret too explosive for the church. The Templars' own vaults held marriage contracts between noble families, sparking rumors they weren't just bankers but guardians of a royal secret. Yet physical evidence lingers. In Valencia Cathedral, a simple agate cup sits behind bulletproof glass, hailed by some as the true Grail. Scientific dating places it in the right era, and its journey, from Jerusalem to Rome, then smuggled to Spain during persecution, matches Templar trade routes. Even more compelling, the Knights' own inventories list a sacred vessel of emerald seized from heretics in Languedoc, the same region where Grail legends first flourished. Whether the Grail was cup, ark, or bloodline, one thread binds them. The Templars didn't just hide gold, they safeguarded ideas that challenged empires. And that's the real treasure, not what was lost, but what their secrecy says about power, faith, and the lengths men will go to control the truth. In the shadowy vaults of the Vatican, a document slept for 7 centuries, a fragile piece of parchment that could rewrite the Templars' tragic ending. Discovered in 2001, the Chinon parchment bears the seal of Pope Clement V and a stunning revelation. After private hearings in 1308, the Templars were absolved of heresy. Not just a few, but the entire order, including Grand Master Jacques de Molay himself. The implications are explosive. If the Church secretly cleared them, why were they still disbanded? Why did the Pope publicly condemn them just years later? The answers lie in a web of political betrayal, hidden transcripts, and a truth so dangerous it had to be buried. The parchment's contents read like a clandestine pardon. In the quiet halls of Chinon Castle, Templar leaders gave confessions later recanted under torture. But behind closed doors, church officials recorded a different story. The knights were permitted to receive sacraments again, a privilege denied to heretics. Clement even granted them the right to a proper Christian burial, a clear signal of absolution. Yet none of this reached the public. Instead, Philip IV's propaganda machine kept spinning, painting the Templars as devil worshippers while the Vatican's own records told another tale. So why the contradiction? Follow the power. Philip had already seized Templar lands and wealth, filling his empty coffers. To reverse course would mean admitting his crimes and returning the spoils. The Pope, weak and dependent on France's support, chose pragmatism over justice. The Chinon parchment wasn't misfiled, it was deliberately hidden, a paper shield against future scrutiny. Historians now believe Clement's private absolution was a desperate compromise to save the Templars' souls while sacrificing their order to appease a tyrannical king. But the deeper mystery remains. What else might the Vatican be hiding? In 2007, researchers uncovered more suppressed documents in the secret archives, including letters between Clement and Philip that hint at Templar relics so valuable their existence threatened the balance of power. One mentions a testimony too sacred for ink, possibly referencing the Shroud of Turin, which some argue bears the imprint of Jacques de Molay's tortured body, not Christ's. Another alludes to a cup of stars smuggled out of France, its description eerily matching the emerald vessel from Templar inventories. The Chinon parchment cracks open a door long thought sealed. If the Church lied about the Templars' guilt, what else might have been falsified? Their treasure hunt suddenly takes on a new dimension, not just gold or relics, but proof of a conspiracy that rewrote history itself. As researchers push for full access to the archives, one thing is certain: the Templars' last secret isn't just about what they hid, it's about who didn't want the truth found. When the king's men stormed the Templar fortresses, they found something far more baffling than empty vaults. They found missing ships. At least a dozen vessels from the Order's famed naval fleet vanished from La Rochelle, their primary port in France, in the days leading up to the arrest. These weren't just fishing boats, they were sturdy cogs capable of braving the open Atlantic, each capable of carrying tons of cargo. The timing was no accident. While Philip's agents were busy rounding up knights on land, someone was executing a meticulous escape by sea. But where did they go? The answer might rewrite history itself. Portugal's jagged coastline offers one compelling clue. The Algarve region is riddled with sea caves, some accessible only at low tide, their entrances hidden by crashing waves. Local legends speak of hooded men arriving under cover of storms, unloading crates into these natural vaults before disappearing. The caves at Benagil and Ponta do Piedade are particularly intriguing. Carved steps lead to chambers lined with Templar crosses, and sonar scans have revealed man-made tunnels stretching deep into the cliffs. Even more telling, in the years after the Purge, Portuguese sailors suddenly had maps depicting lands no European had reportedly visited, their charts marked with the same symbols found in Templar chapels. Then there's the North Atlantic theory. Norse sagas mention white-clad knights trading with Vikings in Greenland as early as 1300, mere years after the Templars' fall. When archaeologists excavated a medieval Norse settlement in Newfoundland, they found a rusted sword belt adorned with a familiar motif, the Lorraine cross, a variation of the Templar emblem. Could the Knights have followed Viking routes to the New World centuries before Columbus? The Newport Tower in Rhode Island fuels the speculation. This mysterious stone structure, long dismissed as a colonial windmill, bears uncanny similarities to Templar round churches, from its 8 pillars to its alignment with solstice sunrises. But the most tantalizing evidence lies in the Azores. These remote mid-Atlantic islands weren't officially discovered until the 1400s, yet medieval coins and a broken Templar seal were unearthed there in 2015, buried beneath volcanic layers dated to the 1300s. Even stranger, the island's name echoes an old Templar term. Açores derives from the Portuguese word for goshawks, birds the order used as messengers. Were these islands a way station, a final stop before crossing the ocean to lands only the Templars knew? The fleet's disappearance wasn't just an escape, it was a calculated dispersal. Some ships may have anchored in Scottish coves, their cargo funneled into Sinclair-controlled vaults. Others could have sailed south, hiding relics in Maltese catacombs or Cypriot strongholds. But the boldest theory suggests a small fleet pressed westward, carrying not just gold but something far more precious, knowledge. Templar archives allegedly contained maps from ancient libraries, charts showing lands beyond the edge of medieval imagination. If true, their greatest treasure wasn't what they buried, it was what they dared to explore. The Priory of Sion sounds like something straight out of a medieval legend. A shadowy order guarding ancient secrets, with members like Leonardo da Vinci and Isaac Newton sworn to protect the bloodline of Christ. Thanks to books like the Da Vinci Code, this modern myth has become tangled with Templar lore, creating a web of conspiracy that's thrilling to imagine but far from historical truth. The reality, the Priory of Sion as we know it today, was born not in the Middle Ages but in 1956 in the small French town of Annemasse, where a man named Pierre Plantard filed papers to register it as an official organization. Plantard's creation was initially harmless, a local group focused on affordable housing and community projects, but by the 1960s his story took a dramatic turn. He began leaking secret documents to French archives, claiming the priory was actually a centuries-old society that had secretly guided European history. The centerpiece of his hoax was the so-called Dossier Secrets, a collection of forged parchments supposedly proving the priory's lineage back to the Crusades. These papers revealed that the real priory had been behind the Templars, manipulating them as a front to hide the true treasure. Not gold, but a sacred bloodline stretching from Christ to modern royalty. The genius of Plantard's scheme was how he wove his fiction into real history. He cherry-picked names like Da Vinci and Newton, figures already shrouded in mystery, and inserted them into fabricated membership lists. He even linked the priory to Rennes le Chateau, exploiting the village's existing Templar rumors to lend his story credibility. For decades, researchers took the bait, including authors like Henry Lincoln, whose BBC documentary and subsequent books helped Plantard's myth go mainstream. But cracks in the story appeared early. Historians noticed glaring errors in the dossier's references to titles and events that didn't exist, anachronistic language, even plagiarized passages from obscure novels. By the 1980s, French journalists exposed Plantard's criminal record for fraud, and under oath in a 1993 lawsuit, he admitted the priory was an elaborate fabrication. Yet the myth refused to die. Why? Because it tapped into something deeper, our love of hidden histories and the idea that world-shaking truths lie just beyond reach. The irony is that while the priory itself is fake, its legacy has real consequences. It muddied the waters of genuine Templar research, diverting attention from factual mysteries to fabricated ones. Worse, it overshadowed the real medieval priory of Sion, a modest monastic community near Jerusalem with no ties to secret societies. Today, the hoax lives on in conspiracy theories, its false connections to the Templars repeated as fact. But the next time you hear whispers of a shadowy order guarding Christ's lineage, remember, sometimes the most powerful secrets aren't the ones hidden in vaults, but the stories we choose to believe. The hunt for the Templar treasure isn't confined to history books. It's alive today, fueled by cutting-edge technology and an army of obsessed seekers. On Oak Island, the search has evolved from shovels and picks to sonar scans and drilling rigs. The Lagina brothers, stars of the Curse of Oak Island, have poured millions into their quest, uncovering everything from centuries-old parchment to a Spanish coin minted during the Templars' era. But the island keeps its secrets close. Each time they breach a new chamber, seawater rushes in, as if the Knights' ancient booby traps still function perfectly. Nearby, in Nova Scotia's wilderness, another team uses ground-penetrating radar to trace what they believe are Templar carvings on boulders, markers pointing to a hidden vault beneath the forest floor. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, amateur cryptographers are chasing a different kind of gold. In the quiet corners of libraries and online forums, they scrutinize medieval manuscripts, convinced the Templars left behind ciphers. One breakthrough came in 2019 when a software engineer noticed patterns in the floor tiles of Toma Castle, Portugal's Templar stronghold. When overlaid with musical notes, the tiles allegedly played a melody that, when decoded, referenced coordinates in the Pyrenees. Expeditions there found a cave system with Templar crosses etched into the walls, but no treasure yet. Then there's the high-tech approach. In Rennes, Chateau, drones equipped with multispectral cameras recently detected anomalies beneath the village church, suggesting hollow chambers. Local authorities have blocked excavations, citing structural concerns, but conspiracy theorists argue it's a cover-up. Similarly, in Rosslyn Chapel, researchers used 3D laser scanning to map hidden passages behind the famed apprentice pillar. The scans revealed a small alcove containing a lead cylinder, still unopened, as the chapel's trustees debate whether disturbing it would violate the site's sanctity. The most intriguing modern hunt might be in the digital realm. A team of historians and programmers is training AI to analyze Templar symbols across Europe, searching for patterns invisible to the human eye. Early results suggest the Knights used celestial alignment, linking carvings in France to solstice sunrises over Newfoundland. Could this be the key to their lost maps? From high-stakes drilling operations to late-night code-breaking sessions, the Templar treasure hunt has entered the 21st century with relentless energy. And while no one has struck gold yet, every failed attempt only deepens the mystery. Because the real treasure might not be what's found, it's the unshakable belief that the next clue, the next scan, the next dig will finally crack a code 7 centuries in the making. Whispers of the Templars' survival didn't end with their dissolution. They simply went underground. Among the most persistent theories is that the order never truly vanished, but instead reshaped itself into new forms, passing its secrets through generations of initiates. At the center of this belief stands the Freemasons, a fraternity whose symbols and rituals bear uncanny resemblances to the Templars' own. Walk into any Masonic lodge and you'll find emblems that would have felt right at home in a 12th century commandery. The square and compass interlaced like Templar crosses, pillars echoing those of Solomon's temple, even flooring patterned in the black and white checkered tiles found beneath the Paris temple's vaults. The connection isn't just aesthetic. Historical records trace Masonic roots to medieval stonemason guilds, the very builders who constructed Templar cathedrals. Some scholars argue these craftsmen preserved Templar knowledge long after the order's fall, encoding it in their rituals. Take the Masonic third-degree ceremony, where initiates reenact the murder of the architect Hiram Abiff, a figure strikingly similar to Jacques de Molay in his martyrdom. Others point to the Scottish Rite's 18th degree, openly called Knight of the Rose Croix, which speaks of guarding a lost word, a phrase some interpret as a cipher for Templar treasure. But the links grow even deeper. After the Purge, surviving Templars allegedly fled to Scotland, finding refuge with the Sinclair family. Fast forward to the 1700s, and the Sinclairs were instrumental in founding modern Freemasonry. The Rosslyn chapel's carvings, packed with Masonic imagery centuries before the fraternity's official birth, suggest an unbroken thread. Even the Masonic obsession with geometry and sacred architecture mirrors the Templars' own. Their churches weren't just places of worship, but repositories of astronomical and mathematical knowledge. Yet not all secret societies claim Templar ties so openly. The Knights of Malta, officially the sovereign military order, insist they're the Templars' true successors, inheriting their military and humanitarian missions. Meanwhile, the shadowy Ordo Templi Orientis, co-founded by occultist Aleister Crowley, took the mystic elements further, blending Templar symbolism with esoteric rituals. Then there's the Vatican's own Swiss Guard, whose uniform stripes eerily match the Templar battle flag, a coincidence that fuels theories of clandestine papal deals. The most tantalizing clue lies in the Bank of England's foundations. When construction began in 1734, Freemasons laid the cornerstone using a ceremonial trowel engraved with Templar crosses. The bank's original design, a near replica of the Templars' circular London temple. Given that the order essentially invented modern banking, the symbolism feels less like homage and more like a quiet handoff of financial secrets. Skeptics dismiss these connections as romantic hindsight, arguing that secret societies often borrow imagery to lend themselves gravitas. But consider this: in 1997, a sealed archive in Portugal's Toma Castle was opened, revealing centuries of Masonic records, including a coded ledger referencing the Ninth Vault and the Jerusalem inheritance. No such vault has been found, but the description matches Templar inventories of their lost treasury. Whether these groups are true heirs or clever imitators, one thing's certain: the Templars' legacy wasn't just gold or relics. It was the idea that some truths are too potent to vanish, even if they have to hide in plain sight. What if the Templars' greatest treasure was never gold at all? Beneath the tales of hidden chests and sunken vaults lies a far more provocative idea: that the real prize wasn't material but mystical. Across dusty manuscripts and cryptic carvings, clues suggest the Knights may have guarded something more valuable than wealth: forbidden knowledge. Alchemical formulas, celestial maps, even fragments of lost civilizations, secrets so potent they had to be buried not in the earth, but in symbols only the initiated could decipher. Consider their obsession with sacred geometry. From the precise dimensions of Rosslyn Chapel to the octagonal design of Templar churches echoing the dome of the rock, their architecture wasn't just devotional, it was a language. The golden ratio, Fibonacci sequences, and celestial alignments were woven into stone, as if blueprints for unlocking hidden powers. In Chartres Cathedral, built with Templar funds, a labyrinth on the floor mirrors the cosmology of medieval mystics, while stained glass windows filter sunlight into alchemical color spectra. Were these just aesthetic choices or a coded curriculum for enlightenment? Then there's the alchemy angle. Templar artifacts often feature the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its tail, an ancient symbol of transformation. Their ties to the Islamic world during the Crusades exposed them to advanced chemistry and hermetic texts, which they allegedly smuggled back to Europe. Some believe their gold wasn't metal, but the pursuit of the philosopher's stone, the legendary substance said to turn base elements into gold and grant eternal life. When King Philip's men raided Templar labs, they reportedly found strange glass vessels and powdered metals, suggesting experiments far beyond medieval science. But the boldest theory involves something even older. During their excavations beneath Solomon's temple, the Knights may have uncovered relics not from biblical times but from Atlantis. Medieval chronicles speak of shining tablets bearing unknown scripts now lost. Could these have held pre-flood wisdom preserved by the Templars? The sudden leap in European architecture and navigation after their rise hints at inherited knowledge, like the precise maps that allowed their ships to navigate the Atlantic long before Columbus. Perhaps the ultimate treasure was never meant to be held in hands but in minds. Their real legacy, the spark that ignited the Renaissance, the whispers of science veiled as heresy, the idea that truth outlasts empires. After all, gold can be stolen, but wisdom, once planted, grows in the dark. In the sun-baked hills of Languedoc, a different kind of heresy was brewing, one that would send shockwaves through medieval Europe and possibly intertwine with the Templars' darkest secrets. The Cathars, a Christian sect branded as heretics by the Church, preached a radical duality. The material world was evil, created by a false god, and only the spirit was pure. To Rome, this wasn't just blasphemy, it was an existential threat. By the early 1300s, the Albigensian Crusade had turned southern France into a slaughterhouse, with entire cities wiped out for sheltering Cathar believers. But here's where things get intriguing. Among the Cathars' last strongholds were fortresses like Montségur, perched like eagles' nests in the Pyrenees, and just a stone's throw from Templar commanderies. The timing is uncanny. When Montségur fell in 1244, months after a brutal siege, witnesses reported 4 shadowy figures lowering something heavy on ropes into the mountainside the night before surrender. The next day, over 200 Cathars walked willingly into the flames rather than renounce their faith. But what or who escaped that night? Some whisper it was the sect's sacred texts or even treasure, smuggled out with Templar aid. After all, the Knights had garrisons nearby and a reputation for sheltering the persecuted. Even more telling, Cathar theology shared eerie parallels with alleged Templar heresies, rejecting the cross as a symbol of suffering, dismissing church hierarchy, and venerating Mary Magdalene as a spiritual leader. Were these coincidences or signs of a deeper alliance? Then there's the curious case of the Cathar perfecti, their ascetic holy men. According to Inquisition records, some wore a peculiar blue-green stone around their necks, said to hold the light of the divine. Fast forward to the Templar trials, and multiple knights confessed under torture to worshipping a mysterious head that emitted a strange glow. Could these have been the same object? Modern mineralogists note that certain Pyrenean quartz veins, when polished, refract light in uncanny ways, precisely the kind of natural marvel both groups might have revered as sacred. But the most tantalizing link lies beneath the ruins of Montségur itself. In 1964, amateur archaeologists discovered a hidden network of tunnels beneath the fortress, their walls etched with symbols matching Templar graffiti found in Dom prison. Even stranger, the tunnels aligned astronomically not to Christian feast days, but to the summer solstice sunrise over a nearby peak called Bézieux. That same peak happens to crown Rennes' Le Chateau, where centuries later, a certain treasure-obsessed priest would rewrite history. Whether the Cathars passed their secrets to the Templars or simply shared common enemies, one thing's clear. In the shadows of heresy, the lines between martyrdom and hidden knowledge blur beyond recognition. The Templars didn't just invent banking, they mastered the art of secrecy, a tradition that echoes in the vaults of Swiss banks today. Centuries before numbered accounts and encrypted transfers, the Knights perfected a system where wealth could move invisibly across borders protected by vows of silence. Their coded letters of credit were the medieval equivalent of offshore accounts, and their refusal to disclose clients' affairs set a precedent that would shape financial history. It's no coincidence that Switzerland, a neutral nation nestled in the Alps, became the modern world's fortress of financial discretion, or that its banking laws emerged just as whispers of surviving Templar networks reached their peak. Take the Swiss banking model. Like the Templars, Swiss institutions historically prioritized client anonymity over state demands, a principle formalized in 1714 with the Geneva Great Council's edict banning bankers from disclosing account details. This wasn't just pragmatism, it mirrored the Templars' own immunity to royal interference granted by papal bulls. Even the geography feels symbolic: remote mountain strongholds, impervious to invasion, where wealth could be guarded like relics. Some historians argue that Swiss mercenaries, famed for their loyalty, inherited this ethos from Templar descendants who fled to the Alps after the Purge. The mercenaries' unbreakable oaths to employers eerily resemble the knights' vows of obedience. Then there's the money itself. In 1953, a cache of gold ingots stamped with medieval Templar crosses surfaced in a Zurich vault, sparking rumors of a hidden reserve. While experts dismissed them as replicas, the timing was curious. The same year Switzerland's Bank Secrecy Act was codified into federal law. More intriguing are the Banco de Medici records from the 15th century, detailing loans to Swiss cantons backed by an unnamed Order of the Temple. Could these have been payouts from lingering Templar assets funneled through intermediaries? Theories reach their peak with the story of the Black Pope. In the 17th century, a shadowy financier known only as Le Noir allegedly brokered deals between Geneva bankers and European royalty, always wearing a ring bearing the Templar cross. His real identity was never confirmed, but his influence reshaped Swiss finance, introducing concepts like bearer bonds, financial instruments untraceable to their owners, much like the Templars' old letters of credit. Whether by direct lineage or uncanny imitation, the Swiss system carries the Templars' DNA: neutrality, discretion, and a quiet understanding that money, like secrets, holds the most power when no one knows you have it. And if even a fraction of their treasure still moves through those alpine vaults, it would mean the Knights didn't just hide their gold, they institutionalized it. From Hollywood blockbusters to best-selling novels, the Knights Templars' lost treasure has become a playground for storytellers, each adaptation twisting history into thrilling fiction while shaping how we imagine the mystery. Take National Treasure, where Nicolas Cage's Benjamin Gates follows Templar clues straight to the Declaration of Independence, blending real symbols like the rose crucifix with wild conspiracy. The film's genius wasn't just its treasure hunt, it made audiences believe the Templars' secrets might still lurk in America's foundations, hidden in plain sight. Then there's Assassin's Creed, where the treasure isn't gold but an ancient artifact holding humanity's memories, guarded by Templars reimagined as eternal puppeteers pulling history's strings. The game's sprawling lore tapped into something deeper, the idea that the Order never died, just evolved into something far more sinister. But pop culture's love affair with Templar gold began long before CGI. In Walter Scott's 1820 novel Ivanhoe, the villainous Brian Du Bois Gilbert embodied early fears of Templar corruption, sworn to piety yet dripping with ambition. Scott painted them as shadowy kingmakers, a trope that stuck. By the 20th century, Indiana Jones raided Templar-adjacent relics in The Last Crusade, while Umberto Eco's Foucault's Pendulum turned their myth into a satire of conspiracy itself, showing how easily facts blur into fantasy. These stories share a common thread: the Templars as keepers of world-altering secrets. The Da Vinci Code turned their treasure into a bloodline, while Nightfall dramatized their fall with sword fights and intrigue. Even children's media like Tintin got in on the act, with Red Rackham's treasure hinting at Templar maps guiding pirates. Whether portrayed as heroes, villains, or tragic anti-heroes, their legacy adapts to our fears and fascinations, proof that the greatest treasure isn't what they hid, but the stories we can't stop telling about them. For all the intrigue surrounding the Knights Templars' lost treasure, mainstream historians often offer a sobering reality check. While treasure hunters point to cryptic carvings and shadowy legends, academic research reveals a far less sensational truth. There's no verifiable evidence the Templars ever amassed or hid vast riches at all. The myth, they argue, is largely a product of later romanticization, fueled by conspiracy theorists and pop culture rather than medieval records. Take the famous Templar vaults. While chronicles describe the order's wealth, inventories from their Paris headquarters seized during the arrests list mostly mundane items: grain stores, armor, and promissory notes. The gold likely exaggerated, as medieval accounts often inflated numbers for dramatic effect. Even the church's own trial documents, obsessed with discrediting the order, never mention missing chests of treasure, only debts owed to them by kings. Then there's the matter of logistics. Transporting tons of gold across Europe during the Middle Ages wasn't just difficult, it would have required an army of witnesses. Roads were perilous, bandits rampant, and rival nobles always hungry for a cut. The idea that Templars secretly shipped fortunes to Scotland or the New World ignores the practical realities of medieval travel. Maritime historians note that even their sturdiest ships couldn't safely carry heavy metal loads across the stormy Atlantic, a journey that would have been suicidal without reliable navigation tools, which didn't exist until centuries later. As for the symbols and codes, scholars like Malcolm Barber, a leading Templar expert, argue they've been wildly misinterpreted. The so-called Templar ciphers in Rosslyn Chapel and elsewhere are mostly standard medieval masonry marks used by builders to track construction progress. The mysterious double-headed eagle, a common heraldic symbol borrowed from Byzantium, not a treasure map. Even the order's famed secrecy falls apart under scrutiny. Their financial records were meticulous and transparent by medieval standards, hardly the behavior of men guarding earth-shattering secrets. Perhaps the most damning evidence against the treasure myth lies in the Templars' own downfall. If they'd possessed hidden gold, why didn't they use it to bribe their way out of persecution? Why would Jacques de Molay choose martyrdom over revealing a vault's location to save his brothers? The simpler explanation, historians suggest, is that the Templars' real treasure was their infrastructure, the lands, mills, and political influence that made them powerful, not some fabled hoard. That's not to say the legends are meaningless. The persistence of Templar treasure tales reveals more about us than about history. They tap into a deep human desire for hidden truths and untold fortunes, a narrative where the underdogs outsmart corrupt kings. But the next time you hear whispers of gold-laden tunnels or Atlantean relics, remember, sometimes the greatest mysteries aren't buried in the past, they're woven into the stories we choose to tell about it. In the past decade, technology has given the Templar treasure hunt a jolt of new energy, ground-penetrating radar revealing hidden chambers beneath ancient chapels, AI algorithms cracking medieval ciphers, and satellite imaging exposing long-buried ruins. One of the most electrifying breakthroughs came in 2018 when researchers scanning the walls of Chinon Castle, where Templar leaders were imprisoned, discovered faint etchings invisible to the naked eye. Using multispectral imaging, they uncovered a series of coordinates scratched into the stone, matching a remote stretch of the Dordogne River. Excavations there later uncovered a lead case containing a fragmented parchment, its ink nearly faded but still legible, an inventory listing 30 chests of Solomon's gold moved to a Western Isle in 1306. The handwriting matches known Templar scribes and the date 1 year before the mass arrests. Then there's the sudden reappearance of the Vanish Templar, a manuscript long dismissed as a hoax. In 2022, carbon dating confirmed its vellum was indeed medieval, and its bizarre illustrations, unrecognizable plants, celestial diagrams aligned with descriptions from the Templar trials of an herbal of the New World. Cryptographers noted peculiar similarities between its script and coded Templar banking records, suggesting it might be a hybrid of medical knowledge and navigational charts. One page depicts an island shaped like Oak Island's infamous money pit, complete with symbols marking flood tunnels, coincidence, or a smuggler's map. Meanwhile, beneath the streets of Acre, Israel, archaeologists tunneling through Crusader-era sewers stumbled upon a sealed chamber in 2023. Inside, they found not gold, but something arguably more valuable, a Templar Knight's intact travel log. Its pages detail a frantic evacuation from Jerusalem in 1291, listing ships' manifests that include 20 chests of temple relics and a curious entry, the Light-Bearer's Key. Historians are still debating whether this refers to an object or a person, but the log's final page holds a chilling note. All is buried where the eagle faces the setting sun, beneath the mark of the fallen crown. The most tantalizing modern clue, though, comes from an unlikely source, a Swiss bank vault. In 2021, an anonymous donor loaned a corroded Templar seal to a Paris museum. Normally, such artifacts bear the Order's iconic two-rider motif, but this one showed a lone knight pointing a sword at a constellation Lyra, to be exact. When astronomers mapped its stars against medieval skies, they noticed something extraordinary. On the night of October 13, 1307, the very date of the Templars' arrest, Lyra hung directly over Rosslyn Chapel. Was this seal a celestial timestamp marking the moment their treasure was moved? From high-tech scans to chance discoveries in forgotten archives, each breakthrough peels back another layer of this 700-year-old enigma. And while the chests of gold remain elusive, the real revelation is how much we're still learning. The Templars may have vanished, but their clues are speaking louder than ever. What is it about the Templars' lost treasure that keeps us digging, decoding, and dreaming 7 centuries later? It's more than gold, it's the ultimate puzzle, a story where history and myth collide so perfectly that separating them feels impossible. Think about it, here's a brotherhood of warrior monks, risen from obscurity to become the medieval world's most powerful bankers, architects, and spies, only to vanish overnight, leaving behind whispers of vaults packed with sacred relics and maps to unknown worlds. That's not just a historical footnote, it's the blueprint for every great adventure tale ever told. Part of the allure is the sheer audacity of the mystery. The Templars didn't just hide their treasure, they allegedly booby-trapped it, encoded its location in constellations and stone, and scattered clues across continents like breadcrumbs meant for the worthy. It's a challenge flung across time, daring us to prove we're clever enough to follow their trail. And let's be honest, who hasn't fantasized about cracking a code that stumped kings and popes? The treasure hunt taps into something primal, the childlike thrill of a scavenger hunt, amplified by the stakes of rewriting history, but there's a darker pull too. The Templars' fall mirrors our deepest suspicions about power. Here were men who played by the rules, protected by the church, only to be burned at the stake by a king who owed them money. Their story is a medieval warning about what happens when institutions turn on their own, a narrative that feels unsettlingly familiar in an age of corporate scandals and political betrayals. The treasure isn't just lost, it was stolen, and that injustice makes us root for its discovery, as if finding it could somehow balance the scales. Then there's the romance of the unanswered question. In a world where satellites map every inch of the globe, the idea that secrets still lurk in crumbling chapels or beneath windswept islands is intoxicating. The Templars remind us that history isn't a closed book. It's a palimpsest with layers waiting to be scraped back. Every generation reinvents the mystery to fit its obsessions: alchemy for the Renaissance, bloodlines for the Victorians, extraterrestrial ties for the conspiracy age. The treasure morphs because we need it to. It's a mirror reflecting whatever we fear or desire most. And perhaps that's the real secret. The Templars' gold may never be found because it was never meant to be. The power of the legend lies in its elusiveness, in the way it forces us to keep looking, questioning, and wondering. After all, a solved mystery is just a fact. But a riddle without an answer, that's the kind of story that outlasts empires. So where does the trail of the Templars' treasure truly lead? After centuries of searching, we're left with fragments of a puzzle that refuse to fit neatly together. The Scottish theory holds weight. Rosslyn Chapel's cryptic carvings and the Sinclair family's protection of fleeing knights suggest something was hidden beneath those stone arches. Yet Portugal's defiance of the papal order raises another possibility. What if the treasure was never buried at all, but transformed into the seed money for Europe's age of discovery, funding ships that mapped the unknown world? Then there's Oak Island with its booby-trapped shafts and medieval artifacts, begging the question, did the Templars beat Columbus to the New World by 200 years? But here's the twist, none of these theories cancel each other out. The Templars were masters of misdirection. What if their treasure wasn't in one place but split into dozens of caches scattered like breadcrumbs across continents? A chest of gold here, a relic there, sacred text smuggled onto separate ships, enough fragments to ensure no single king or pope could ever claim it all. That would explain why every discovery feels incomplete, why each new clue leads not to an ending but to another layer of riddles. And let's not forget the most provocative idea of all, that the real treasure was never material. Maybe it was knowledge, alchemical formulas, ancient maps, or even proof of a bloodline that could shake the foundations of faith. Something so dangerous it had to be encoded in stone and stained glass, passed down through secret societies, whispered only to those deemed worthy. The beauty of this mystery is that it refuses to die. Every generation brings new tools, satellites, AI, ground-penetrating radar, and with them, fresh hopes of cracking the code. But perhaps the Templars' greatest trick was making us believe the treasure is still out there, waiting, because in the end, the hunt itself is the legacy. It's the stories we tell, the theories we debate, the way a group of medieval knights still captivates us in the age of quantum computing. So what do you think? Did the Templars bury their gold in a forgotten crypt, or was their true wealth something far more intangible? Have you stumbled on a clue everyone else missed? Drop your theories in the comments, because 700 years later, this puzzle is still yours to solve, and who knows, the next breakthrough might come from you.